I'd like to welcome you all to Milford's Planning and Zoning Board meeting for Tuesday, June 19th, 2018. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Can we call the roll?
Good evening, I'm Brian Collegian.
Nancy Austin.
John Grant.
Carl S. Moore.
Scott Marlowe.
Denise Doucette-Janice.
Bob Sadie.
Peggy Kearney.
And I'm Jim Quish. With us we have David Solskis and Meg Green from the city. Our first order of business is 74 Surf Avenue, petition of Roland M. Skinner for Coastal Area Site Plan Review, map 29, block 472A, parcel 42, of which R.M. Skinner Enterprises is the owner.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Joseph Codaspodi with Codaspodi & Associates, 263 Boston Post Road in Orange. With me tonight is the owner of R.M. Skinner Enterprises, Mr. Roland Skinner, and we're applying for a CAM review permit for 74 Surf Avenue. This is an empty lot as it currently exists. At one time, it was part of a subdivision. Through various processes, through ZBA and through inland wetlands, we've obtained necessary approvals, and that's why we're before you tonight. Just as a matter of, to go through the plan, this is at the end of a watershed. So to meet various requirements, we have proposed a rain garden to control the first inch of runoff from the roof drains, and then the excess would go into Long Island Sound. We propose an elevation of about 8.0 for the garage, 12.2 for the main floor, which may be adjusted per the city engineer's notes about being 18 inches above the center line of the road. So we may actually raise that a couple inches, as he indicated on his letter or his memo. That could be field adjusted. We're also very comfortable with incorporating all the city engineer's comments into approval tonight, if that's necessary. The house will be built slab on grade. The garage will contain the necessary flood vents so that in case of a flood, the structure of the integrity of the structure will be maintained. The main residence will be backfilled and with compact fill, as it says on the plans for the house plans. So that won't need flood vents because to meet the flood code. So you could see that was indicated on the plan with regards to the compact fill and other necessary things to make sure it meets the flood code. Other than that, it's a simple it's a residential home in an existing neighborhood. There's actually access to the estuary behind us. The paper road, even though it's a paper road, it's still dedicated to the city. Willow Street does continue all the way to the west, abutting up, so if public wanted to, they could access it there, meeting the CAM requirements. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Thank you. David, do you have any comments?
No, you have my report, and basically this is will not cause any adverse environmental impact.
Any questions from the board? Sadie.
We don't have all the papers that you're referring to. So the report we have indicates that there was a variance granted in April of 2018 on Willow Street. Could you just briefly explain? I know you talked about the unimproved road. Just briefly explain that to us.
Sure. This was an old subdivision, I think circa 1930, 1940. And there were many lots that actually ran a different direction off of the unimproved area of Willow Street. Actually, at the far west of Willow Street, the city still owns one of those lots. So what we did is we combined several lots into a usable parcel. The old subdivision lots were just really lines on a piece of paper. You couldn't really build on them, at least a modern house. So what we did is we took several of those lots, combined them, so that we could have one usable piece of property that would fit in with the neighborhood and be visually pleasing to, if you drive by, you wouldn't notice it.
Mr. Chair? The quick answer is they got a variance for the front yard because the house that they're proposing has 2 front yards.
Mr. Grant?
I have a couple of questions. Can you tell me what the average grade is?
Average grade is about 6 1/4.
And can you tell me what the mean roof height is?
I think we're proposing about 30 feet from the average grade.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Just a quick question, and maybe it's to Mr. Sulkus. With the rain garden or the bioswale, whichever you want to call it, who maintains that? How does that stay maintained?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, when we got wetlands approval, it would be noted on the deed that the homeowner has to maintain it. And then through wetlands, they actually asked for signage to be placed near the rain garden, not to disturb it, because we know that can happen. So it's actually on the deed, going to be recorded on the land records, and signage would be put up.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, would anyone like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve 74 Surf Avenue, petition by Roland Skinner for a coastal area site plan review on map 27, block 472A, parcel 42, for which RM Skinner Enterprises Incorporated is the owner.
Do you have a second? Mr. Marlowe?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll do a all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next order of business is 622 Gulf Street, petition of Kevin Cresadian Esquire to create a 4-lot subdivision and coastal area site plan review on map 28, block 520, parcel 26, of which George H. Ward is the owner.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Kevin Cresadian. My office is at 3 Lafayette Street here in Milford. With me tonight is the owner and applicant, Mr. Ward, and also from the engineering firm of Malone McBroom, Mr. Matt Duche. I brought the PowerPoint because I thought it would be better for you can see the overall overhead view of the lot and give you a little bit of background or history of the lot. So this is an aerial view. I don't know if this is from the GIS, City Milford GIS, or Google Earth. I think it's the GIS of the existing structures. Right now, there's 3 houses on the property, 622 to 626 Gulf Street. This is 622. There's 2 parcels in the back here. There's an access, you'll see it in some other photographs. There's an access off of Old Field Lane, and there's also an access off of Gulf Street. Both access ways cross over neighbors' properties. They're deeded as rights-of-way or easements going back probably over 100 years or more. And I'll talk more about that. That's mentioned in Mr. Sulkas's administrative summary as well. This is just the actual GIS with a little larger view of the neighboring properties. You can see Old Field Lane, this is Gulf Street, and then there's Ranch Road. This is that private access way back here off of Old Field Lane that crosses all of the neighbors' properties there. I have several letters in support, and there may be some neighbors here in support tonight. One of the common themes with the neighbors that have access off of Old Field Lane is that they are in favor, the ones who are in favor of the project state they're in favor, but they don't want this access way changed, which led us into some discussions with the fire marshal that I'll also mention. And this is the access off of Gulf Street over 646. You've probably seen the property. It's where the city had just completed that new wall a year or so ago. Mr. Ward actually gave an easement to the city to complete that work. That driveway is right at the end of that wall, that retaining wall. And you can see the properties on there. Interestingly, at one point in time, and I think the house burned down in the 80s, there was another house in this general area, so there was actually 4 houses on the lot. Although that burned down, Mr. Ward never intended to abandon that use as a 4th house. He just had not rebuilt it. Rather than read all the names into the record, and I'll give a copy of this PowerPoint presentation as part of the record. These are the neighbors in support of the application. I've highlighted the properties, and then I've listed the names. So we have a letter. These are people that specifically have given me letters for tonight's hearing. This is the property here. Some folks Mr. Ward has tried to contact, and he's just not been able to contact on the Ranch Road side. So you can see most of the adjoining neighbors, not all, but most have given letters in support. With respect to the neighbors and their deeds for Old Field Lane, each neighbor, and I'll submit copies of the deeds for the record as well, has easements and right-of-ways and cross rights-of-way for that access. So everybody is covered for that access way. The property developed over the years. This was what it looked like in 1918. And you can actually see this the deed for this right-of-way over 646 Gulf Street actually grants 2 accesses onto 622 Gulf Street. I think it's like 40 feet and 120 feet away from what's now presently Gulf Street. It's not completely shown there, but there's the 1 access off of Gulf Street leading to the property, and then there's 2 access ways that split onto 622, according to the land records. There used to be a road that ran all the way through here. It was a dirt road. It was never an accepted city street. That's been abandoned by Mr. Ward. You can see this property was at one point in time, looked like it was 1 parcel. The property was over 4 acres. Now it's about 3.02 or 3.2 acres. Before Mr. Duché gets up to talk about the actual subdivision, I do want to note for the record, we have comments from the police department, engineering, fire department. One of the concerns of the fire marshal was the access off of Old Field Lane for one of the proposed lots, which is listed as Lot 4. It's this lot here. And we went back and forth with them, and Mylona McBroom suggested a plan, and Matt will talk about it as part of the going through the plans. But we've gotten approval from the fire marshal. We have approval from the police department. We've incorporated all of the city engineer's comments. One of the things I wanted to talk about is we do, at least I think according to Mr. Sulkas, have to request a couple of waivers from this board. We did receive variances from the ZBA for certain aspects of the lot. For example, because of the way the property was developed over the years, this proposed lot has 2 houses on one lot, which is not standard or allowed under the single-family residential R18 district. We had all the variances obtained from the ZBA that we needed as far as the zoning regulations. The only board that can vary or waive, Milford really calls them waivers, although they're variances, as considered variances as well, of the subdivision regulations is this board. So you have control over your subdivision regulations with respect to waivers or variances, and the ZBA has control over the zoning regulations, or the authority over the zoning regulations to do that. So we are here tonight asking for a couple of waivers. Those waivers are with respect to the access ways, and that's a subdivision regulation. I do want to note that as part of the variances we received, they have almost a mirror or identical zoning regulation for the access ways, that they have to be 25 feet wide. We did get variances from the ZBA for those. However, there's a separate subdivision regulation that requests or requires the same thing. And those access ways, I'll go back a bit. This access way is probably, it's a dirt or stone gravel road. It's like 10 or 12 feet wide approximately. It depends on depends on where you look at it on the map. And the access way in the back, once again, the comments for the neighbors is they wanted to maintain that as a rural country road. That goes about 12 feet or so as well. So as opposed to having 25 feet, which is required by the subdivision regulations, we have what's existing, and we cannot impact. Mr. Ward didn't want to impact it anyway. We pushed back and forth with the fire marshal about widening the back access road, and that's not Mr. Ward's property. That's a combined property of all the different neighbors, depending on the lot. And it's a similar thing here where Mr. Luparella, who owns this property here, does not want any increase in that access way. So if you can, the reason I wanted to pull this up again is because if you go back 100 years or so, when this lot was, the house was first built, and the house might even be older than that, the original house that fronts on Gulf Street, the neighborhood grew up around this parcel, and this parcel was never subdivided. So one of the discussions with the ZBA was that the hardship arises, and you don't need to determine a hardship in your case as the ZBA needs to, but you should note the reasons for whether you decide to agree with the waivers or not. The hardship is that it's a pre-existing non-conforming lot that existed way before the zoning regulations or subdivision regulations came into play in Milford, and it has been left relatively unchanged over the years, other than some updates for the houses. So there's really no other access. One of the things that David, Mr. Solkis and I agree to disagree on is I believe, under my research, that legally Mr. Ward's entitled to the subdivision as of right, regardless that the subdivision regulations say you need 25-foot wide access. Or there's some other comments about the shapes of the lot. They're kind of irregular. They're not generally rectangular. The reason being is because as a property owner, you have a right to divide your land. Yes, should you comply with the zoning subdivision regulations? Yes, to the best of your ability, but you should not be blocked from taking a piece that's one piece, which is, by the way, highly non-conforming for the zone, because right now we have 3 houses on one piece of property versus 1 house per piece of property. So you're taking this and you're making it, in some cases, less non-conforming with respect to the number of houses on a lot, but you shouldn't be blocked because you can't widen the access way that was granted over 100 years ago, because either the neighbor doesn't want it, you have no control over whether that neighbor gives that, allows you to widen that or not. That's my opinion. That's what I think that some of the case law says. I did speak, not that the board's interested in the legalities of it, but I did speak with the title company, and the title attorney from Caddick had informed me that they would insure title to these approved lots, which is important, because if you can't get title insurance for a lot to build a house on, it's not marketable title, and you either can't buy it or you shouldn't buy it. So they would ensure that title to these lots based on these existing access ways, as long as there were internal easements from each lot to access the other lots that are created. And I have a proposed declaration of easements that I'll hand to the board for the record. It's just a draft right now, but it spells out all the different easements that would be required. So the one more thing I would talk about is that there's a mention in Mr. Solkis' comments about a designation of open space, which is referencing a lot across the street, which is owned by Mr. Ward, but which is not part of this application, is also, well, it's not part of this application. It's a separate lot. It's a separate tax block and map parcel lot. In addition to that, aside from it being a second separate lot, over the years in bringing subdivision applications and other comments that I've heard from your predecessor boards is that they like the open space to be contiguous with other open space areas. And in this case, you'll see a wider picture at one point, or a couple wider pictures, but see, this is the area I'm talking about across the street. But next door, that's not owned by the city. Over here, this isn't owned by the city. It's not really, I don't think it meets the other criteria for open space. So what you do in that alternative, if there's not sufficient space to designate open space in a subdivision application, is you ask the board to order a cash payment, which is 10% of the appraised value of the land prior to it being subdivided. And in this particular case, where I also respectfully disagree with Mr. Solkis, is I believe that Mr. Ward's entitled to a free split here. We didn't bring a free split application because we wanted to keep this moving forward. We had started this process quite some time ago. The reason I bring it up now is not to confuse what the application is. It's with respect to the cash payment, and we'd ask that if someone's entitled to a free split, they're not required to give a cash payment on that. We're not asking that Mr. Ward give no cash payment. We're just asking that he give cash payment that's 75% of what it would be, as if he was actually subdividing 4 lots. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me before Mr. Duché goes over the subdivision plans.
Does anyone on the board have a question now, or should we wait? Go ahead.
All right, good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Matt Duché. I'm a professional engineer with Milone McBroom, and we're located in Cheshire, Connecticut. As Attorney Kersaden had indicated, the proposal in front of you tonight is for a 4-lot subdivision, 2 of which would be frontage lots and 2 of which would be rear lots. The property in its entirety is approximately 3.7 acres in size. It's located in an R18 zoning district. The 4-lot subdivision, as you see on this plan here, Lot 1 is located here in the upper left-hand corner. Lot 1 will encompass the existing home on the property, which is identified as 622 Gulf Street. And access to Lot 1 will continue to be gained via the existing right-of-way, which extends over the adjacent property here, 646 Gulf Street, to the property known as Lot 1. Lot 2 is going to be located right here, just to the south of Lot 1. Lot 2 is again, a frontage lot. It's an R18 zone lot and will allow for the construction of a new single-family home. The lot will gain access in the same manner as Lot 1 gains access now. And again, that's over the existing right-of-way in favor of the property. Lot 3 is a rear lot. It's located here on the property. You can kind of see it's a little bit larger than the frontage lots because of the fact that rear lots need to be 1 acre in size per your zoning regulations. Lot 3 will encompass the 2 existing homes in the rear of the property. As Attorney Kersaden had indicated, variances have been approved and recorded to allow for this configuration. These homes will continue to gain access as they have historically, which is via the right-of-way which extends off the page here out to Old Field Lane. Finally, you have Lot 4 here in the corner. Lot 4 is another rear lot. Again, it's oversized, it's over an acre per your regulations. And again, that lot will also gain access out to Old Field Lane via the right-of-way in favor of the property. As noted before, you'll notice in the plan this connection here, as Attorney Kersaden had indicated, that's in favor of the fire department. What you see there is concrete reinforced grass pavers. And what that essentially does is provide a connection between Gulf Street through the property out to Old Field Lane. It was something that we worked with the fire department in order to locate on the plans to provide them that access through the property. Those concrete grass pavers are 16 feet in width, as well as the driveway for Lot 4, 16 feet wide, to accommodate emergency service vehicles. The concrete grass pavers will be demarcated in the field, pressure-treated posts with placards indicating where they are, and deed restrictions will be placed over on Lot 2 and Lot 4 in order to ensure that this access is free and clear in all seasons. So as if there is an emergency, it's not piled with snow or planted or something to that effect. So again, that provides connectivity between Gulf Street out to Old Field Lane and through the property. Also on the plans, you'll notice that we have 2 rain gardens. Again, these rain gardens are intended to mitigate any increase in peak rates of runoff from the site. As with any development, you have a change in coverage, and these are sized in order to mitigate that increase in runoff. For anyone who's not familiar with a rain garden, it's essentially a shallow landscape depression that's designed to kind of capture and promote infiltration into the underlying soils. The roof leaders from the proposed homes will be directed to each one of these rain gardens, and an engineering report has been submitted with the application and reviewed by the city engineer to ensure that they're sized and located adequately. All the homes on site are proposed to be served by public water and sewer. There's actually a sewer main which extends on the property. You can kind of see the outline of the easement in favor of the city of Milford here. It runs and terminates at this location. It runs down Old Field Lane, and you can kind of see the outline of that 25-foot easement that encompasses that public sewer. What you see here is another easement in favor of 646 Gulf Street here to allow connection to that public sewer. So again, all the lots on site are proposed to be served by public water and sewer, which are readily available either in front of or on the property. There's some perimeter S&E controls to ensure that there's no sediment tracking from the site. But again, on a site like this, there's very little earthwork. The site is generally pretty flat, and there's not a lot of earthwork other than the construction of the homes and the excavation for the foundations that needs to occur here. With that being said, if the commission has any questions regarding the information I've presented, I'd be happy to try to address them.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments? Mr. Sadie?
Thank you. Let's talk about Lot 2 for a minute, if we could. If you could explain the sign, assuming the white that we see on the map now is indicating those are going to be new, either roadways, driveways, or paved areas. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
So the house is the orange.
Correct.
What's the width of the roadway, driveway at that particular point where they're going to be having the cars pulling out of the garage?
At this location here in front of the property?
Correct.
This location here, I believe, is 15 feet wide right here in front of the property.
How many feet, please?
15.
15.
15, correct.
Then you have, at the very top of it appears to be, I think it's Lot 1, it's a much wider area. What's the size of that, please?
I mean, I'd have to scale it off the plan to tell you the exact dimension, but that pretty much is the outline of the existing gravel that's in place now. So I believe the rendering more or less replicates the parking and the turnaround area that's in place now for the property located at 622 Gulf Street.
This question would be, on the 2 new homes, approximately how many car garages are proposed, if you know?
On the plan, we're showing a garage that can accommodate 2 vehicles. Understanding that, when a home buyer comes in, they're going to come in with their own architecture, which may differ from what's shown on the plan today. But what's shown there are 2-car garages. You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, thank you.
If I can just submit the copies of the easements for the existing easements for the record and the neighbor letters in support. And then I believe Attorney Lynch is here tonight representing the owner of 646, the Luparellas next door. His client has reached out to Mr. Ward and had some questions and concerns about the application. We haven't had an opportunity to have a meeting on that yet, but I think Mr. Lynch would like to make a comment or two before he...
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, Thomas Lynch. My office is located here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street. And as Kevin mentioned, I do represent Frank and Mona Luparella. My clients are the owners of the property next door at 646 Gulf Street. And I was prepared to make a presentation to you in opposition to this application, but I did have discussions with Mr. Kersaden. We attempted to have a meeting prior to tonight's public hearing, and one of the things that both he and I were going to request would be that the public hearing remain open till at least your next meeting, so we can have a meeting to discuss my client's concerns. I mean, very briefly, the nature of their concerns lie in the fact that the access way that's shown on the map coming in off of Gulf Street is in fact on my client's property. It is derived from an easement grant that was recorded in the Milford Land Records, I believe, in 1921. And he and I have differing opinions as to what the legality of that grant would entail in terms of his client now subdividing the property nearly 100 years later and having 2 homes accessed by this 1921 right-of-way with, in fact, as Mr. Sadi had just raised the issue, 2 homes that could have 3-car garages and multiple cars coming in and out. So I'm not belaboring that point right now. I'm just saying that's the nature of my client's concerns, and we are going to try to discuss a possible reconfiguration of the easement, and that may entail a revision to the plan to bring back to you at the next meeting. But that's basically what we wanted to state tonight, that we do have concerns. My client does have concerns, and we're going to try to see if we can work them out and report back to you at the next meeting. So, thank you.
In addition to the neighbors' letters in support, we'd also received a letter in support from Connie Giancaracos, I believe is how you pronounce it, from Colonial Properties. Just briefly, I disagree with any potential opposition from the neighbor. The easement has been in existence for a long time, and it brings me, one of the things that I didn't mention to you, and Matt kind of highlighted it, is this is a simple 4-lot subdivision that's already got 3 homes on it. It used to have 4 homes. So what we're really asking for is 1 additional home other than what had been on the site at one point in time with the 4. Right now there's only 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're asking for 2 more. So typically when you talk about overburdening an easement, it's dramatically increasing the use and shifting it maybe from a residential to a commercial use, for example. If you're talking about adding a couple of homes, and Mr. Sadi had questioned about the garage, so I'm not sure if the question was how big are these houses going to be. This is simply a subdivision application. We don't know what the architectural plans are going to look like when somebody comes in. The houses could be smaller. They will have to comply with the zoning regulations, but they could be located slightly differently on the lot and have a little bit different configuration. So thank you, pending your comments.
Thank you. So this is a public hearing. If anyone would like to come and speak on this issue, please state your name and your address for the record. Please speak into the microphone. And if you would, keep your comments to about 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is DeForest Smith. I work with George J. Smith & Son Real Estate at 247 Broad Street, the head of the green. I've been working in real estate in Milford for over 50 years. I've known the owner of this property, George Ward, for more than 60 years. I've walked this property probably 100 times. George has owned it for over 50 years. He has been the guardian of this property. He lives there. He loves it. He has protected it for these many years. The last thing he wants to do is disrupt a neighbor or neighborhood. He's 80 years old. He's had some bad health reversals recently. If something should happen to him, his estate would have to sell this property, and probably, if they ask me, highest best use, it'd be one of your affordable housing projects, which George Ward detests. He does not want it. To me, to have something almost 4 acres subdivided into 4 lots in that area just makes a whole bunch of sense. And again, George has been the guardian of this property for more than 50 years. He truly, truly loves this property and will do what he has to do to protect it. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Dory Mealy. I live right next door to George Ward at 612 Gulf Street. We did not sign off on this. We wanted more information about the access from the narrow private lane is our only access to our home, and we're really concerned about how the traffic will affect that road, you know, building an additional house. So basically, we don't have enough information yet to approve or disapprove of the plan.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dennis LaFerrier. I originally lived on Gulf Street for 40 years. I recently moved to Bridgeport. And basically, I've known George for a good part of my life, and we've become friends over the years. And I'm a landscape architect, site planner. I've worked on many projects here in Milford, including this building and many others. And from what I know George, he's very sensitive to the fact that he wants to keep the whole site to retain as much of the residential character that presently exists with minimal disturbance and minimal impact to the whole situation that we see going on in the whole street and development. He wants to keep it in the character that's there with minimal disturbance, and I think this would be the best use of this site. Like I said, having been a resident on Gulf Street for 40 years. And I believe any other change to a plan like we're reviewing tonight would have more impact. And basically to keep this proposal moving forward, I think would be a very positive statement that could be moving forward in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Joe Blickfeld. I live at 650 Gulf Street. I am like one house removed. To me, this seems like 2 separate issues. The first issue is, should we have a 4-lot subdivision? And I'm totally in favor of that, with the idea that it does maintain the character of the community. I've been there about 20 years now, but I know the site for much longer. Some of the other issues that were brought up tonight concerning right-of-way, et cetera, I guess has legal implications and negotiation implications. But as far as the basic 4-lot subdivision, I'm very much in favor of it, and I think it will maintain the character of the community. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John DeGrand. I live at 36 Evening Side Drive, and as you know, as it's proposed with just 2 more houses on like maybe, so 4 lots on 3+ acres or something like that. I'm in support of this. Thank you.
Michael Sabo, 21 Olive Street. I've known George and that property for more than 20 years now, and I'm also in favor of the plan.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this issue? Attorney Crusading, would you like to address anything?
Well, I believe we're going to keep the public hearing open, but I did have one comment for one of the neighbors. In the police report, there is a mention, and this is with respect to the Old Field Lane access. The traffic sergeant had stated that an accident history going back to January 2011 shows no accidents at this location, meaning that the end of the access way, you can't see it on this plan, but the one that comes off of Old Field Lane. This entrance here shows no accidents at this location, nor am I aware of any issues raised by residents in the area. That was just a report that he had done completed a couple of months ago, but we will work to answer the neighbors' questions. Thanks.
Would anyone else like to speak on this issue? Okay. Mr. Sulkus, any comments?
You should have received my staff report on this. You heard a lot of information tonight. You heard a lot of sentiment from neighbors. But what this really boils down to is, what do the regulations say? You have a pre-existing property that's got multiple houses on it, which is great. There's no issue with that. It predates our subdivision regulations. That situation can continue into the future without any issues. They could turn it into a condominium because it exists. But what they're asking to do is to create a subdivision, and they're asking to do it in 2018. And when you do a subdivision in 2018, it has to meet the subdivision regulations. And in the report, my report to you, I point out where lots 3 and 4 do not meet the subdivision regulations. They can talk about historic access ways, which are 12 to 14 feet wide. That's great. But to create rear lots, you need to have a 25-foot wide access to the street. Now, Mr. Crusaden and I, we disagree about what our regulations say, but I will tell you that it has been the custom and practice of this board, when you create rear lots, each one of those rear lots has a 25-foot wide access way to the street, because that 25-foot wide access way gives you the frontage on the street. That makes it a legal lot, because we can't create a landlocked parcel. The board in the past has had subdivisions where people have shared the access way, and that's fine. But in those instances, each of those lots has had its own 25-foot wide access way to the street. Might not have been utilized because of grade differences and changes, but each one of those lots technically met the regulations, which is you have to have a 25-foot wide access way. So in the case of what's brought before you this evening, you would need basically a 50-foot access to Old Field Lane. You don't have that because each of those rear lots would need a 25-foot wide access way. And our regulations clearly spell that out in 3.2.10. As far as I'm concerned, it's as simple as that. Mr. Crusaden and I can disagree about other things about the application, and we have a good relationship where we disagree about certain things. But as far as I'm concerned, there's no disagreement with the meaning and the custom and practice of this board and how they've interpreted that rear lot with its 25-foot wide access way. And not part of the application, but a comment from a member of the public, there was a veiled threat that if this board doesn't approve this, this would become an 830G. Whether or not this lot is subdivided, it could always become an 830G. It has nothing to do with the subdivision. So keep that in mind. And you are the guardians of your regulations, and oh, it's all well and good that, you know, neighbors are happy, that, you know, and neighbors may have been concerned about the specter of 830G, but that's not the case here. If you're going to create new lots in 2018, they need to adhere to your subdivision regulations.
Thank you.
No?
No. I'm gonna see what the board, if it has any questions for,
All right, I do have a
for
response
staff.
to that. But, yeah.
I'm sure you do. Any members of the board have questions for Mr. Solkis, or comments or questions of the applicant?
I didn't hear anything mentioned about lot improvements as far as like landscaping, buffers, or anything else in the presentation. And when I was going through the drawings, I really didn't see that really spelled out. So I'd like to see something more on that information. Also, each lot has a problem with it, either with either one of our regulations, 3.2.7 or 3.2.10. So each lot has to, doesn't apply to either both of them or to one of them. And I'd also like to have a clearer definition as to exactly what we would have to approve for a variance, you know, in order to make, you know, based on those things. So I kind of like to see that spelled out better, saying, you know, this lot, this is what we need to, the variance would be this, all right? Right now, we don't have that. So I think leaving the open is a good thing for them to also speak and to come up with that documentation.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so was that clear just for the plaintiff, what Mr. Grant is looking for? Is that something that you're willing to invest some time in?
We're not the plaintiff yet, but for the applicant it is.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes, I heard those comments, and we've taken note of those, and we can answer some of that now. And I don't know if I can just briefly comment on the rear lot comment from Mr. Sulkus. Thank you for indulging me just for a few more minutes. I know it's a busy meeting. So we had the same comment when we came for a variance for the ZBA regulation with the 25-foot wide lots, and the comment was that Milford has said you need 25 feet because that's the required frontage. You need frontage, and the lot can't be landlocked. These lots are not landlocked. This lot is not landlocked. Proposed lots are not landlocked. They have deeded rights of way or easements. Also, the board has the authority to grant these variances. And the variances that are being requested for the rear lots, it's of 3.2.10 because of the 10 or 12 feet wide access ways versus the 25 feet. And also for 3.2.7, which I think is the next one, talks about straight lines versus the type of configuration we have here proposed, which is just based on what the lot is. And so you can see 3 out of the 4 lots are generally rectangular in shape, and you dig down into the regulations, and there's no definition of what generally rectangular in shape means, of course. So, I think for 3.27, it would be this lot that actually has more space, and those trees are not, once again, it's not a site plan, so the landscape and buffering aren't part of this application, but those trees aren't, there's no plan to remove any of those trees there. So that's just the way the lot is. It could be generally like rectangular in shape if you cut that, took that land off or took it out of the subdivision application, but it wouldn't meet the rest of the requirements. But so to go back to the regulation, and I've had this dispute with the representatives of zoning for some time, there's nothing in here that says 25 feet of frontage. So the reason that's important is the board can interpret its own regulations, but the reason that's important is that when you have applicants come to file an application, whether it's a subdivision application or a site plan application, people need to understand what the requirements are before they start spending a lot of money and time bringing these applications forward. And so also, and we have no intention of going to court or being a plaintiff, I was just joking around picking up on your comment on that, but the courts will interpret this regulation, and somebody looking at this will say, well, where's the frontage requirement? Where is the frontage requirement in this regulation? Also, I want to point out, I went back and looked at all the subdivision regulations for this rear lot, and only in I think it was in the past like 10 or 12 years, there's been a specific regulation about rear lots in the subdivision. So that didn't even exist until about 20 years ago. So this is the previous definition of rear lot, where you have here, Mr. Sulkus had mentioned you need 50 feet wide. This is the previous one. This is the one that no longer exists. It's been revised. So down here it says each lot shall require its own individual private means of access. So under that interpretation, you would need 25 feet per rear lot. If you go back to what the current definition of rear lot, that's removed. And this is what's in your current subdivision regulations from 2004. A lot, the major portion of which, there's no mention that each lot needs 25 feet wide of access space specifically. It just says that you need a 25-foot wide access way for residential use and 50 feet for non-residential use. So that was removed. I don't know why. I didn't look at the minutes from when that was removed from the regulations or what the reasoning for it was at this point, but so it says a private access way, 25 feet wide, which is shared. So really the only request is instead of 25 feet wide, it's 12 feet wide or 15 feet wide or 10 feet wide, depending on the width of the dirt road when you go out on site and measure it. What's common with a lot of these old rights-of-way and easements, they don't spell out, they don't, I would do an easement now and it would be 10 pages long explaining all the things and who's responsible for what and how wide it is. Back then it was, I'm deeding it to John Smith and, there's no dimensions on it. So that's that's part of what the request is, and that would be the circumstances unique to this property that we're asking you to vary the regulation for. So I don't agree that it's 25 feet wide per lot. And that's what our position is. But we can answer some of the other questions when we come back.
Any further questions? Okay, so then we will keep this open. It's possible that there may not be a quorum on the 3rd. People may be traveling, so it may be kicked off for another 2 weeks. But so it will be the next scheduled, the next meeting. Is that okay? Is that, all right, David? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd be looking at probably a July 17th meeting.
The next order of business is 480 Boston Post Road, petition of R. Macaluso for special permit site plan review to convert a retail use to an auto dealership, map 64, block 930, parcel 10, of which 480 Boston Post Road, Milford LLC is the owner. I am going to recuse myself from this and pass the gavel to my vice chair. Thank you.
Good evening. I am not Mr. Macaluso. He had another engagement he had to tend to. I'm Raymond Payer, licensed engineer in the state of Connecticut. I'm the Vice President of Engineering at Westcott and Mapes, located at 142.
Excuse me, can you just put the microphone closer to you?
Sure. Once again, Raymond Payer, engineer in Connecticut, VP of Engineering in Westcott and Mapes. We're located at 142 Temple Street in New Haven. For this application, we are seeking a change of use from the current retail, it was the former Expect Discounts building, to a proposed automobile dealership in order to park cars on the property. The plan before you is a colored site plan, and you could see to the south, lower portion of the plan is the Boston Post Road, Route 1, and on the east side, High Street, so it has two frontages. With this application, we're actually increasing the amount of green space on the property, creating a buffer from the Route 1 as well as the neighboring property here from the south and then the east. 20-foot buffer here and a 10-foot buffer there. Landscaped green space with low growing hues and grassy area. We are restriping and in essence actually reducing the number of spaces, parking spaces on the site that currently exist in order to meet the regulations. We've worked with staff and proposing a timber and steel rail decorative guardrail, protective guardrail, along the front of the property, side of the property as well, to prevent vehicles from encroaching or parking upon the buffer. So therefore we keep that buffer pristine and intact for the proposed use. We've met with engineering, city engineer, met all his requirements, comments, improving water quality by retrofitting some water quality inserts, worked with Inland Wetland Commission, there being wetlands 150 feet back off to the north of the property, satisfied no concerns in that regard. We went through the Sanitary Sewer Commission approval process in compliance with that and have achieved their approval. And basically, we comply with all the setbacks, lot coverage. The building is not changing with this application. The footprint, the coverage, the appearance remains as it currently does. There is an architect exploring with the owner to improve the appearance, but the branding and that has not yet been decided or disclosed to us. When it becomes apparent, certainly it will be talked over with staff and brought at that time. But basically looking for change of use from the retail to an automobile lot in order to park the new vehicles for automobile dealership. That being said, I respectfully request your consideration for approval this evening on this application, and I'm available to answer questions you may have.
Any comments from staff?
The resulting site work that they're proposing to do is a great improvement to what's there. And one of the things which is not a glamorous site improvement, but they're correcting a drainage problem at the back, which has been an issue for the city and the adjacent property owner for years. So this is, in my opinion, a good application.
Questions from the board? Commissioner Sadie?
Thank you. In the plans that we had, and I can see the pink from here, the building existing site is not going to change, but the usage will be, obviously. But the point I'm trying to find is there going to be a service department? Is there going to be work done in some parts of the building, or is it going to be completely sales, if you know?
There is a rear area called a vehicle prep. No lifts, no mechanics, just basically cosmetic type of prepping, so when they bring the car out to the lot, it looks new and appropriate. So to my knowledge, no mechanical work in the back.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. So with that, we ask that we follow the following procedures. To approach the podium and clearly state your name, address, and the spelling of your name. Address all comments to the commission. State your comments in a clear, succinct manner as possible, and keep your comments to under 3 minutes. And if you'd like to make ask that who are in favor of this applicant, please come forward. Seeing none, I'd like to see now those who are against this application, please come forward. Seeing none, any comment from the applicant?
No, sir, no further comment from me. Thank you.
Comment from the staff or anything? Nothing. All right, we can close the public hearing at this time. Ask the board if we're okay with voting on this evening or if we'd like to hold off to the next meeting. All right. We ask those make a motion for this.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 480 Boston Post Road, petition of Ray Macaluso for a special permit site plan review to convert a retail use to an auto dealership on map 64, block 930, parcel 10, for which 480 Boston Post Road LLC is the owner.
You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you. The next order of business is 3840 and 4450 Bridgeport Avenue, petition of J. Nuff, Esquire, for special permit, site plan review, coastal area management site plan review for a brewery, restaurant, and tandem parking on map 18, block 363, parcel 5 and 6, of which McNeese Enterprises LLC is the owner.
Evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 147 Broad Street here in Milford, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Village Marina LLC and Dockside Brewery LLC, which are the tenants of the properties just indicated at 38 to 40 and 44 to 50 Bridgeport Avenue. The two parcels consist of slightly more than 2 acres and are located in the business boating zone. The property at 38 to 40 Bridgeport Avenue is and has been the longtime site of Village Marina, which consists of 65 boat slips, along with an office, marina support space, and bait shop, all within the 2 existing properties on that site. And the property at 4450 Bridgeport Avenue currently features a single-family house, which will be removed to accommodate required parking, and also has an unpaved parking lot. Before going further, I just want to note a couple of items that I submitted for the record. The first, I think we're going to have this read to us a little bit later, is a letter to you, Mr. Chairman, the Planning and Zoning Board, by Michael Lynch, who's the chairman of the Economic Development Commission. I've also supplied a handout entitled City of Milford Planning and Zoning Board, Application Village Marina, Dockside Brewery, which consists of 7 attachments, which is primarily the reports that you have received from all your city departments, as well as our inland wetland approval and a letter from the Deep Office of Long Island Sound Program. You also have a handout prepared by our architect, John Wicko, which is elevations of the improvements to the existing building, as well as photographs of the existing condition of that building. And I also want to hand in, we have 1 copy of a petition which has been signed by over 1,500 people, which is quite an outpouring. So I just want to hand this in for the record as well.
Thank you.
So there are 3 applications before you. A special permit application for tandem parking pursuant to 5.1.17 of your regulations, and that encompasses the total of 9 spaces. There's also a site plan and coastal site plan application for the addition of an accessory restaurant use pursuant to section 3.7.3.2 of your regulations and related improvements. So on the one hand, these applications could not be more mundane or straightforward. And frankly, they are from a zoning perspective. First, the applications comply with all bulk, parking, landscaping, photometric, and other requirements. Second, we have received unanimous approval from the Milford Inland Wetlands Commission and positive reports from all city departments and a positive report from DEEP's Office of Long Island Sound Program. And third, the applications do not propose to construct any additional building square footage of any kind. In fact, as I noted, 1 single-family residence is going to be removed. On the other hand, however, the fact is that the approval of these applications will have a tremendously positive impact on the site architecturally, aesthetically, and environmentally, and at the same time achieve my clients' 3 overriding goals. The first goal is to become a true destination for boaters and families in a manner that is fully respectful of their neighbors. Second, as a new destination in Devon, to be an important component with regard to the ongoing economic development efforts in Devon. And third, to ensure that the marina is a viable, long-term use despite the challenges of the current boating market. I'll discuss those more in detail in a moment, but I think it's also critical for you to know that each of my clients has a long-standing commitment to the city, to Devon, and to their marina. In fact, they have already made very substantial investments to replace the existing docks, and will be making a significant additional investment to execute the plans under consideration this evening. But they have great faith in their vision for the marina and for what Devon can become. The existing site, as I noted, at 38 to 40 is 2 existing buildings. Both will remain, but the larger of the 2 is largely vacant, and that's what is depicted in the handout, and you see on the board in terms of our elevations. And the site at 44 to 50 is 1 existing residence that will be removed, and an unpaved parking lot with absolutely no stormwater treatment of any kind. The proposed uses and areas: 38 to 40, the smaller building will remain. That houses an existing bait shop and marina support facilities. The larger building, we propose a substantial renovation with a goal that would be reminiscent of what you would find on Nantucket. This building will house the marina office, the proposed brew pub restaurant as an accessory use, and also caretaker apartment, all as permitted in the zone. In particular, the restaurant portion will include a front patio as well as outdoor decks in the rear of the main building to take advantage of views of the Housatonic River. The interior will have a number of beer garden tables adjacent to the decks, which will also feature river views thanks to a series of folding glass doors. A large lawn area will be available for boaters, patrons, and frankly any member of the public looking to take advantage of the proposed public access. The site at 44 to 50 We will replace the unpaved parking lot that currently has no stormwater treatment and virtually no landscaping with a paved lot that fully complies with all parking and landscaping requirements, the addition of decorative lighting, and will also include state-of-the-art stormwater management treatment system, which is why we received unanimous approval from the Inland Wetland Commission. They were very happy to learn of the proposed redevelopment of the site. As I noted, public access will also be permitted on the site, and parking is allotted specifically for public access. Before I have John Wicko take you through the plans and the elevations, I want to return to those goals and demonstrate and describe a little bit more about the proposed uses in the context of those three goals. As I know, the first goal is to become a true destination for boaters and families in a manner that fully respects their neighbors. So how does that actually play out? Well, out of the 65 existing slips, 20 will be converted to transient slips to help invite boaters from other parts of Long Island Sound to visit Milford. The front patio, the rear decks overlooking the water, and the lawn area will activate both the front and rear of the sites. The lawn area will be available for a variety of games. As I noted, the additional public access so anyone can come. So the whole goal is to create a fun, lively, relaxing destination for friends and family. The hours, the restaurant will close by 10 o'clock most nights, 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturday nights. What's really important, and we're aware that this is a sensitive issue, we do not propose any outdoor music, any outdoor speakers. We know that there is a marina across the river that frequently upsets many of our neighbors. That will not be the case with our proposed use. This is going to be a restaurant that will also feature a brew pub. This is not a bar, it is not a tavern. We will serve wine, we will serve beer, no hard alcohol will be served. We expect that most patrons will be enjoying the beer that will be brewed on site, but a number of different beers will be served. All beer brewed on site will be available only to the patrons of our sites. Nothing will be carted off site, so there will be no containers, there will be no trucks visiting the site to carry beer to other retailers. All beer that was created and brewed on site will be consumed on site, and none will be taken away. So again, the goal is to create a very family-oriented, very friendly environment in a manner that's respectful to our neighbors. Second, as a new destination, the goal is to be another important component in the efforts to revitalize Devon. I've been practicing law here in Milford since 1996. From the time that I got here, I've heard about efforts to revitalize Devon, and I know that those discussions took place even before I arrived here. And certainly great strides have been made, but there's still work yet to be done, and we know that this site is particularly critical, and here's why. You know, we often hear about different sites being a gateway to a city or a gateway to an area, and frankly, I think that term is overused. Everything is a gateway to somewhere, but this really is a gateway into Devon and into Milford. And so for those who are entering Milford from the west, you have the Bridge House on the south side of the street. You're going to have Village Marina on the north side, and this beautiful new building. While it's an existing building, it's going to be substantially renovated, and it will be truly attractive. As I said, it's going to be in a very Nantucket-style building, and it will create a really lovely entryway into Milford. Certainly by bringing more visitors into Devon, you'll give them an opportunity to experience what Devon has to offer, and they can visit other businesses and restaurants. And certainly economic development includes the creation of employment opportunities, and so our conservative estimate is that at the beginning of when we first start serving, we'll have an additional 12 to 15 employees at the sites. And their third goal is to make the marina a viable long-term use. As you may know, the boating industry has undergone a foundational shift over the past 10 to 15 years. It is much more difficult to make a marina viable and successful and without having accessory restaurant use. And that accessory use is critical to the maintained viability of the marina. While my clients have invested heavily in the replacement of the docks, that simply isn't enough. Indeed, the difficulty of maintaining the viability of the marina is even set forth in the letter from the Office of Long Island Sound Program. Simply put, without the addition of the brew pub restaurant as an accessory use, the viability of the marina itself is in jeopardy. We hope that as you learn more about the application, the board appreciates the care and thought and enthusiasm and patience and commitment that went into this application, because it ensures the viability of an important water-dependent use. it as a second water-dependent use in the context of public access, and it does it in a way that strikes a perfect balance of drawing visitors to the site with a lively environment, but in a respectful and thoughtful manner. And I think that's why this application has received this, frankly, unbelievable outpouring of support. I've had the privilege of representing some of the largest projects here in Milford. I've never had an application that there's a petition signed by over 1,500 people. I think it's an indication of the commitment, and everyone knows that my clients are enmeshed in the community of Milford. I think they know that a brew pub is sort of a very modern, sort of a cutting-edge use. It's going to draw the right type of people into Devon and to the marina, and we're very excited about for you to learn more about the building itself and the modifications that John Wicko has designed. So with that, I give you John Wicko.
Thank you, John. You just made my job a little easier. A lot of information. So I'll just go through the plans, the site plan, and describe a little bit, identify what are on those. Our first sheet is the zoning data, which just describes that it conforms in every way to the regulations in the boating district. We have an overall site plan which matches up with the boating slips, which John talked about. There's transient and rental slips that are there that connect to the shoreline to the north. Number 38 is over on the west side. That's the building that houses the retail bait shop and marina support. Number 40, which is the main building that we're renovating, houses the marina operations, the marina support accessory restaurant, the marina caretaker apartment with a little stair addition. Since we're removing the caretaker house, we're providing him with a rather nice apartment on the second floor. It also has the parking in that former open yard with the millings and gravel that John talked about. SP2 is a little more detailed site plan. The thing I just want to point out is that there's two sets of parking areas. The one that's off of an existing curb cut, which will remain to the west, that'll house the 9 tandem spaces that are there, and also some spaces for retail and for the caretaker apartment also. In the zoning our zoning data, we kind of broke down the different uses and the requirements parking-wise, and that total comes to 107 spaces, where we're providing 112, with 9 of those as being the tandem. And also the patios and decks are a seasonal use, so they'll be sharing the parking of those spaces. Some of the engineering drawings, Ron Wasmer, he's here this evening to answer questions, but he prepared the grading plan, which depicts the existing grade. We're doing minimal changes to it. We're kind of working with the grade that's there. We're also maintaining access for the marina, which operates underneath the restaurant, and there's overhead doors and kind of major things that we had to maintain for the proper marina function. We also have, let's see, I think utility is next, which shows that we're tying into all existing public utilities. The city engineer requested that we do underground utilities, and we are going to meet that suggestion from his office. This also shows the stormwater management system and the drainage that's been approved by wetlands. We're going through the sedimentation and erosion control plan was reviewed and approved by the wetlands. And then we've got some underground site details, where the next 2 sheets. They're all here for your perusal when you feel like doing that. More importantly, in terms of what the building looks like and the site is landscaping. We've exceeded the minimum requirements. We've also provided the type of vegetation to complement the kind of Nantucket or coastal vernacular of the both parking lot and the building itself and around the building, the decks. There's a variety of shade trees in the front that are, I'm sorry, street trees are in the front, and a number of new and existing street trees at the side street. There's a lot of berry trees, grasses, to kind of enhance that beach feel of the site, which was very important to our clients. The lighting plan, we've created a safe and low-level lighting environment for the parking lot and for the secondary driveway, which is for the bait shop and the back of the kitchen, basically. I'm just trying to go through this quickly, so I'll certainly answer questions. I'm thinking of things that I could say, but just want to get through it. There's a lot of drawings. There's some, the lighting fixtures are a coach style that kind of match the city, the Devon style fixture, very attractive. We also have on the smaller driveway side some mini lights that we've used to kind of keep the height of the light fixture down to avoid the light trespass to the lots to the north of us. We also have deck lighting, which is they're very low, kind of small LED that just give a nice calming ambient light in the evening hours. Then we get into some of the, there are sheets L, I think 2, 3, and 4. They show in detail the fixtures and the style and the heights of everything. Some above ground site details show the dumpster enclosure, which will match the construction and siding of the renovated building. 3 different fence types for various different locations, privacy. There's an open rail. There's a picket style fence, stockade, for the different areas of the site. There's a couple more above ground details, signs and striping and things like that. Going through demolition wise, which we didn't talk about, we are maintaining that access towards the river, but that's now, instead of a functional access, it's emergency only. We're rebuilding the curb cut that's here that is now asphalt per the city engineer's request, and we are relocating the main entrance to the facility, to the marina, off the Boston Post Road, shifting it so it lines up for proper traffic circulation. And then there's another curb cut at the other end, which is being maintained as is and improved. Then there's the house, obviously, is going, and then there's a lot of kind of old work area designations, walkways, and paved areas that are going to be transformed into that lawn for the family use and outdoor activities. And also part of the set is the existing condition survey. And as part of the application, we're going to be merging the 2 lots that John was talking about into 1 lot. So there's a map that's prepared for that purpose. Moving on to the building itself, the building is existing to remain. There is a portion of the rear and side of the building that will need to be reconstructed due to structural conditions that are existing, a little deficient, and also what we're proposing is to enhance the roof line in the rear, and with that we need to build a proper wall that will support the large span roof truss. But the foundation, the front portion of the building, which is depicted in the front elevation, that rendering, that remains the same. It'll get renovated. The attic will get renovated with some dormers for the caretaker apartment. Storefront glass will be introduced in the front. It's already there, but we're enlarging it and modernizing that front facade. The entrance, we're shifting from the center of the main gable, the cape that's there, over to the side for proper flow. This is the lower level, which shows the different basement use areas. The majority of the basement is the marina operations with the office and storage and maintenance of the docks and the grounds. The center section has the restaurant, lower service area storage, kegs, and that's all included in our primary parking for the restaurant at 1 per 75. And then the brewery, we are taking a portion of that basement and filling it in with concrete to support the heavy loads of all that yummy beer. And then there's also area down there for storage of the ingredients to brew the beer itself. So we're using that whole lower level, and it's allocated for the first floor, which is the main living area, 4,000 square feet. 2,700 square feet of it is restaurant, and 1,290 is at the front, which is the brewery. Basically, as I said, we enter from the front corner, walking in, seeing the kegs or the vats from the road, from the front patio area, and also as you enter. It's a very impressive process that they have developed. Once you walk in, the restaurant opens up, so you can see right through out to the river and the views to the north. There's the bar area, various types of seating, the beer garden table, some dining. There's a fireplace for the winter months when the doors are closed, and a very cozy and vaulted ceiling, a very nice environment for this type of use. Then these sliding doors, these glass doors, open up to some decks that terrace down with the grade as they go towards the lawn area for the use, outside summer use, for games and recreation, as was discussed previously. Going through, there's the plan for the caretaker apartment, 1 bedroom up in the existing attic, with some dormers for some headroom and character also for the building. One feature we built into this pitched roof with a widow's walk style railing is all our mechanical equipment will be up there and not on the ground, interfering with enjoying the environment and the location. So the kitchen stuff, the rooftop units, all that kind of equipment is going to be there. And then the elevations, one is rendered before you in your packet of the front, which I described before. The side elevation, this is that one block wall that's not going to be sufficient to support the roof truss, so we have to remove that, which is a good thing, and we'll be building a new wall in that area and on the back to support some steel to provide us with all the large openings for the interface from the deck to the beer garden tables on the inside. And the side, some vast improvements with some gable lines that will house the parking lot side, building side. We also have the building sign in the front with some nicely detailed, more of a sculptural sign that sits on some architectural metal, kind of a canopy that's supported by some brackets. So it has a very distinctive and stylistic look. There's this access that we needed to maintain with the site, which we provided well for their operations. And then this is the kitchen, if you will, kitchen side with the loading door there. There is the kitchen for pizza at this point and some other small items as the menu gets developed further. And then this is the side of the front, which has some of the elements. We brought in some of the, actually some kind of neat details. There's the large shop door we're using as a facade element, and also there's the apartment entrance into the stair that goes up, and there's a door entrance into the brewery office. Okay, and then the existings, I could go into these, what we're changing and everything, but they're there again for you to ask questions if you have any. But that is a pretty thick packet. I hope it didn't take too long to go through that.
As I know, Mr. Chairman, you know, these plans have been under work for quite some time as our clients, frankly, you know, scour these plans to try to give you the best possible result and obviously give themselves the best opportunity for a successful venture. I do want to thank David for, I mean, I think we've met with him perhaps maybe half a dozen times. He was very generous with his time and his thoughts, and we appreciate all the time that he spent with us really to pour over the plans and give you the best possible result. Rod Rosmer is here, our professional engineer. A number of my clients are here. Obviously, John is here to answer any architectural questions. But that's all we have for you. You know, obviously, we would love to get an approval this evening, and they'd love to get underway as soon as possible. You know, their goal was, frankly, to be open this summer, but because of you know, working through the iterations of the plan, that's not going to be possible. But certainly, they would like to get to work as soon as they possibly can.
Thank you. David, any comments?
If the board entertains this for action this evening, I would just recommend that as a condition of approval, you put in there that there won't be any of the outdoor speakers, music, or entertainment of any kind, which they have already volunteered, but it'd always be nice to be in the approval. And just to let you know that there's a chance a sidewalk may have to go into Riverside Drive. The city engineer recommends a sidewalk there, but depending on what's going on in Riverside Drive, the Director of Public Works could opt to not have a sidewalk there and then have them pay into the city sidewalk fund instead.
And if we were to act on this tonight, would there be one motion or three separate motions? What would you recommend?
I think you ought to make the motion based on what we have on the agenda, which, if it's correct, should be the special permit site plan, CAM, and also the tandem parking, because they are asking for tandem parking for employees. I believe there's, it might be 3 or 4 spaces on the, if you're looking at the building on the left and toward the back. They're allowed to ask for that, but you would have to approve that.
So again, the question, would they be separate motions or one motion to encompass everything?
You could make one motion to encompass everything.
Thank you. So this is a public hearing, and I'd like to invite the public, anyone who would like to speak against the proposal, to please come to the microphone, state your name and address, and speak into the microphone, and please keep your comments to about 3 minutes. Is anyone here to speak against? Seeing none, I would like to open it up for anybody that would like to speak in favor of the application. Same thing, if you give your name, address, speak into the mic, and keep your comments to about 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Frank Basil. I am the owner of Bridge House Restaurant, 49 Bridgeport Avenue. Just looking at that property as a whole, it's a beautiful area, and I think that having the largest coastline in Connecticut, we should do something about it and put something that would drive from all over the state to Milford. Being across the street and hearing nothing but great things from our customers and any regular, anybody that comes into a restaurant, they're for it, they're excited about it, and quite frankly, seeing what 2 roads has kind of done to Stratford, I would love to see it happen across the street in Milford, and really be a gateway and a segue to kind of everything else that Milford has to offer. So crossing that bridge and seeing what they're kind of looking to do here is really exciting. And dealing with as many people as I do in the area, the consensus is that it's a great thing, and it's something that many of our regulars, our guests, and the community is kind of looking for. So I'm hoping for a neighbor very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Vincent Ditchkus. I reside at 171 Houstonic Drive, Milford, Connecticut. I'm in favor of this project. A lot of the questions I had were answered during the presentation. Excuse me. It is something that Devon Revitalization had worked for, is to start bringing in businesses. This is an addition to that project that started 10, 12 years ago, if not longer. It is something, when you have a restaurant brewery, it attracts people. The marina has been struggling for 30 some odd years over there, long before the current owners ever got involved. That marina is a great waterfront property. There are many options that can happen. It can go condos, it can do a lot of things, but this is something that brings people to us, brings people to the area. And if they don't find what they're looking for there, they can go across the street to Stonebridge, or I mean Bridge House, find another restaurant to go to. So I hope you approve of this project, and thank you very much.
My name is Edward Chickos. I'm a 50% owner, along with my aunt, of 30 Bridgeport Ave. I'm right next to the brewery. Her name is Virginia Smith. She's 98 years old, so I'm here. The only concern I have is the dock on the south side, some of their plans. If you look at the waterfront, their docks come over in front of my property, but that's the way the curvature of the river is. And I'm hoping that they don't expand onto my property and box me off my access to the river. That's about the only thing. And Danny said he was gonna work on a fence for the properties to keep the properties separate, because I'm like 100 feet from their back porches. So gotta keep my aunt, gotta keep it nice and quiet for her. So that's it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brett Broster. I live at 33 Railroad Avenue, apartment 15. And look, I think this project is really great for the community, and can really serve as that gateway to Milford from the Washington Bridge coming in from Stratford and even exiting. But I think mainly for three reasons this is really important to the community. One is the job creation element, bringing a dozen jobs to the Devon area. Is just really helpful for Milford. I think two, the neighborhood revitalization piece and really making use of that beautiful waterfront property that currently is a bit underused, and bringing a craft brewery in this sense would be just tremendous for it. And I think the third folds in from that of bringing waterfront access, that is giving the public access to the waterfront, that, Milford being, as you know far better than I do, that Milford being the city with the most residential coastline in the state, really has some beautiful public access points and beaches, but when it comes to kind of the interacting with the waterfront from a business sense, this really brings it to that Devon neighborhood to a degree where nothing exists right now, and therefore this is really helpful, but also just, getting to know Dan and Bob and Brian through the process and the other owners. I think that they really care about that area and are invested in it, and invested in Milford as a whole, as we all are. And therefore, I think that this is a tremendous boon for the city, not only because of the local element, but also bringing in the piece of the economic boom of craft breweries across the state, which is a $700 million a year and growing economic impact industry for the state. But thank you.
Elizabeth Ditchkis, 171 Houstonic Drive, Milford, Connecticut. I'm here to support this project. I did chair the revitalization committee, and our purpose at that time was to beautify Devon and bring in business. And I think this project meets all that criteria. We should be thankful these people are putting their necks out for this. It should be a beautiful asset for Devon, and I wish you would vote it in favor. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carol Eaton. I live one street away from where the marina is, and I believe this is such an asset to Devon. We've worked very hard. I've been on the revitalization committee for 10 years, and I'm so excited. I hope this goes through the way they have planned. Thank you so much.
Anyone else like to speak? Yep.
My name is Mike Wojcicki. I own Fisherman's Paradise located on the property at 38 Bridgeport Avenue. These guys have been great to me since the day I came in. They're great businessmen. They know what they want to do. They're very passionate about the area. And I think it's going to bring so much business just to every business in the area, including the gas stations, me, Meineke, everything down there is going to get so much more from this area, from doing this in this area. So I hope you approve it tonight. I think it'd be great for all of Milford. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to note the submission of a letter of support from Kim Rose, the state representative from the 118th district as well.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Robert Massett. I reside at 18 Intervale Parkway. Can everybody hear me? My property is located approximately 50 yards from the proposed development at Bridgeport Ave, 38 to 40 and 44 to 50 Bridgeport Ave. As a concerned citizen, taxpayer, and longtime resident, my Devon neighborhood has been adversely affected by some commercial developments along Bridgeport Avenue. After approval by Planning and Zoning, these developments have created increased traffic noise, light, parking, and other issues that have negatively impacted the residential neighborhood. Tonight, with your help, we hope to avoid more of the same. Devon is a quiet and stable neighborhood, but with unchecked commercial development, the quality of life that, that support and enhance the neighborhood are being sacrificed. Prior to zoning approval, the neighbors' concerns must be fairly and adequately addressed by the Commission. At all times, a balance must be struck between residential neighborhoods and commercial development. Frankly, the neighbors should not suffer and be expected to fend for themselves after zoning approval has been granted. I would respectfully request each commissioner to consider tonight's proposed development as it was being built in your neighborhood. I have researched a number of brewery businesses to determine hours of operation. I've also considered issues that require the board's careful consideration as they relate directly to the quality of life for surrounding neighborhoods. To that end, if the board approves tonight's application, my neighbors and I respectfully request the following conditions be made part of the approval, which will require the current business owners and future owners to honor. First thing here on my list, indoor musical entertainment. Now, according to what I'm coming up with for hours, we thought Sunday through Thursday, indoor entertainment should end no later than 8 p.m., Friday and Saturday, 9 p.m. Indoor music / musical entertainment or / entertainment of any kind must be contained in an acoustically designed area to properly absorb sound, and all doors and windows to the establishment must be kept closed to avoid sound from permeating into the residential neighborhoods. Outdoor music. Now, I wrote this before I heard what they had to say, but I'm going to read this anyway. All outside audio and sound reinforcement equipment must be located in the hollow portion of this property and must be facing upriver, either north, like roughly north or north-northwest, to avoid sound permeating into the residential Devon neighborhoods. All outside audio or sound reinforcement equipment must be silenced by 7 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday. Air, noise, and light pollution. Buffers are to be added from the corner of the lot at Bridgeport Ave and Riverside Drive and continue west. Now, I haven't looked at the site plan, so some of this might already be handled, but I'm going to read this anyway, and I should be coming in right around 3 minutes. Continue west as far as the eastern side of the Marina building to avoid light and noise pollution from the Connecticut Turnpike and the Dock Shopping Center permeating into the residential neighborhoods, because once that house is raised, that's going to open a big hole from upriver and across river, and all that noise and light is going to be coming into the neighborhood. Next item, existing trees on the property remain intact to mitigate air, noise, and light pollution in the neighborhood. Lighting in the parking lots and other areas must be focused on the lots or buffered to avoid light from permeating into the residential neighborhoods. Lastly, good corporate neighbors. Business owners are to periodically check surrounding residential neighborhoods to ensure parking issues are kept to a minimum. Appropriate signage is to be erected that directs customers to approved parking areas and away from no parking areas within the residential neighborhoods. That is all I have to say. I have copies for everyone on the board.
Thank you.
I'll take any questions if anybody has.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I also wanted to note, I thought someone was going to be reading a letter from Michael Lynch, who is the president of the Economic Development Council, but if it's not going to be read, I just wanted to note that it had been submitted as well. Letter of support.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, great, thanks, Julie.
Good evening, Julie Nash. I reside at 224 Woodruff Road. I am also the Director of Economic Development, and I am going to read the letter from my commission. Unfortunately, they were unable to attend this evening. Dear Chairman Quish and members of the board, as Chairman of Milford's Economic Development Commission, I write in support of job creation, economic growth, business development, and innovation in the city of Milford. In furthering the EDC's mission to assist local business development, I write in support of Agenda Item D3, the petition of Dockside Brewery for a special permit to allow for a waterfront brewery and restaurant. The economic impact of craft breweries is staggering. The Brewers Association estimates the economic impact for Connecticut to be over $718 million each year, employing thousands and providing a boost to tourism. Connecticut's craft brew economy has tripled over the last year, and we are pleased that Milford has already joined this explosive industry. with 2 breweries operating in the city. The EDC encourages small business growth, and we believe that this proposal will further enhance the city of Milford by attracting tourism and additional business development while also enhancing our waterways. We appreciate your advocacy on behalf of business development in Milford and urge you to approve this petition for a special permit. Sincerely, Michael P. Lynch, Chairman, Economic Development Commission, City of Milford. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Just a couple of responses to the comments from neighbors. First of all, I want to thank everyone who came out to voice their support. I mean, typically, those who are in support of an application typically stay home. It's only those people who are opposed who come out and speak. And we had a nice reversal of that standard tonight, and we very much appreciate the outpouring, not only those who came to speak on our behalf, but also those who signed the petition. In terms of expansion of the docks, we don't propose the expansion of the docks. The number of slips will remain. The only change, as I said, will be a conversion of 20 of those slips from rental to transient slips to invite boaters from outside of Milford to visit Milford and to visit our sites. In terms of neighborhood concerns and quality of life, this will be a dramatic, substantial overhaul of this site. I can't imagine a neighbor who wouldn't embrace this project in its entirety. We have took the unprecedented step, frankly, of volunteering not to offer any outdoor music, outdoor speakers. We know sensitivity. I was here several months ago where a number of neighbors who spoke against outdoor speakers, and the commission still approved it. Nonetheless, my clients took the high road and said, we're not going to do that because they were sensitive to the neighbors, and they made that pledge over a year ago when they met with their neighbors. And I think that demonstrates the commitment that they have to the project, the commitment they have to Devon and to the neighborhood. But we are going to respectfully object to any other further conditions, including any noise limitations within the building itself. In terms of air, noise, and light, we comply with your photometric requirements in terms of 0-foot candles at the property line. That's a relatively small house. There's not going to be any huge impact from any development across the Housatonic River and views that may be blocked for that site. John Wicca, who may be the most modest architect God has ever created, described very briefly the very robust landscaping plan, but we can have him go on a little bit at more length to demonstrate, the massive amount of landscaping that's going to be added to this property to help buffer views. And we comply with all parking requirements. So to the extent there's any parking concerns other than the tandem parking that I think affects a total of 6 spaces, we comply with all your parking requirements. And in fact, we actually have a small surplus in the number of parking requirements. So I think the commission, from our presentation and from the outpouring support, including from politicians, can understand the level of commitment and concern that has gone into the development of these plans, and we would object to any further conditioning of any approval with regard to sound, noise, lights, because I think all those have properly been accounted for. So again, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone in the audience like to speak in rebuttal to the applicant's last statement? Seeing none, are there any comments from the board or questions? Mr. Grant.
I have a question. Was a traffic study done for this project?
No. No, but the police commission gave their enthusiastic support. It's a fairly modest-sized restaurant. It's under 3,000 square feet. It's not a condition on Bridgeport Avenue where you have multiple lanes. There's 1 lane in each direction. The sight lines are excellent, so no one suspects any traffic issues.
I just that area has a tendency to get congested at certain times of the day. So I was kind of wondering.
No, I understand that, at rush hour you may have that, but I think, if you look at the ITE manual for restaurants, your peak hour is going to be a little bit later in the evening when rush hour is over. And let's face it, there's a little bit of traffic in Devon. That's not such a bad thing. I think that's what we all want.
Anyone else?
I want to go back to the traffic study, and I have to disagree with you that that area is a bottleneck most parts of the day. And it's not 4 to 8 o'clock, 9 or 10 o'clock at night. It's still very busy there. So wondering why you just didn't do a traffic study to give us an answer.
Again, this is a very, very modest-sized restaurant. I mean, frankly, I'm not aware of any other sort of similarly sized restaurants that have done a full traffic report.
I have a number of other questions. What is the size that's being recommended for the number of patrons that can be inside of the establishment and outside with the 2 decks? I didn't see that in the plans.
Okay, John.
Hi, John Wicko. The square footage on sheet, I think it's A1 or A2. Let's get to it. I'm sorry. Too many sheets. There we are. Sizes. The restaurant is 2,732, excuse me for my back. The brewery is 1,289. There's support facilities in the basement, which total 3,000 square feet. The rear decks are 1,932. The front patio is 608 square feet.
My question was the number of patrons, though.
On sheet A3, we've graphically described with seats, tables and seats. If you give me a minute, I can count them, but they're graphically represented there on A3.
Again, the question was number of patrons that are authorized to be in
if
there.
you
Doesn't
give
matter
me a
number of
minute,
tables.
I can count those for you.
What, is it in the materials you gave us? I'm just trying to find that out.
Yes, I mean, but keep in mind that parking is based upon square footage, and whether or not there are 100 seats in that square footage or 20 seats, the parking is determined based upon the square footage of the restaurant space.
I wasn't asking about parking. I just want to know approximately how many patrons are expected to be here during the busy hours.
Okay, John is counting.
The front patio is 28. The upper deck is 54. The lower deck is 30.
And of course, that's assuming that every table has every seat occupied.
The next question I have is why are there no sound barriers proposed on the outside of the building? Because the district that I do represent, which is Devon, is very upset about the sound that's coming from the river. And I understand that you want to help us out by not having sound at night by that, but what about sound barriers? Because I'm assuming there's a substantial amount of noise when there's that many people out on the deck having a good time.
What happens across the river is apple and oranges with what my client's proposing. We understand that people in our neighborhood can hear frankly, the bar across the river. That's why we took the unprecedented step of pledging not to have any outdoor music speakers of any kind.
Questions?
Good evening. Just for myself, just to clarify the scope of the marina, are you going to be doing any repairs on boats?
No. And you know, sort of a little bit of background. I mean, that was something that had been attempted some time ago. And again, because of how the boating industry has changed, there's a lot of people doing their own work in their own backyards. As a matter of fact, even the deep letter had indicated the difficulty of the viability of many marinas. So no work is proposed. The off-season storage of boats is no longer proposed. And to the extent that you consider boat storage a water-dependent use, I don't. It doesn't make any sense. but we're adding public access in place of that. But no, so those sorts of concerns, like, I mean, you could have a marina where there'd be a substantial amount of work being done, which would also create noise. We're not doing any of that.
Thank you. One of my other questions was if you were going to store boats over off-season there, but obviously answered that. Another question I had was, I know that as part of the project, a big piece of it is that you want to have the public available to the space.
Right.
And are you going to designate any of the parking for public, you know, for someone who may not be using the restaurant?
No, so as I'm sure you know, public access is a water-dependent use, and oftentimes can be, that use alone can be sufficient to satisfy coastal area management statutes. There are spaces accounted for in our plan for public access, and we also have a surplus of parking. So yes, there is sufficient parking for public access.
Thank you.
Can you go into a deeper dive in regards to emergency access and vehicles or waterways?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there is an existing driveway out onto Riverside that we will maintain. It won't be a use, or it won't be an access drive that will be in constant use by customers, but it simply will be maintained for emergency access.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
I'd like to go back to the neighbors. The gentleman that spoke about the fence, is that going to be addressed for him, the abutting property owner?
Yes, hi, John Wicko. There's a, the gentleman's property is here to the northwest. We have, maybe the landscape plan shows it better, but there's evergreen trees that are planted there. There's a 6-foot-high privacy fence. So we're doing both buffering systems, and that also curls around. There's a very unique spot where we're doing the tandem parking spaces. That's all going to be fenced off. It kind of juts in and juts out. It's kind of like into the yard. So we propose, there's some shade trees there also, so it kind of has some buffer. When you look over the fence, there's also vegetation that's there. So that has been addressed very seriously, and I know one of the owners, Dan, has discussed that with him, and they've been good neighbors with what happens.
Okay, thank you. Another question I had for the gentleman that spoke with his list of concerns. Although I know that you don't want to entertain any other conditions, and it certainly looks like you've done a lot of work on the application for sure. Would it be worth maybe just sitting down with him at some point, because perhaps his concerns are already addressed, you just need to explain to him exactly what is there?
No.
So you wouldn't be willing to speak with him to help explain how those plans address his
we'd be willing
concerns
to speak
already?
with them once this process is concluded. I mean, certainly we'd be happy to speak to any of our neighbors, but not in the context of this process.
Thank you.
We received a letter from Village Marina saying there was going to be a neighborhood meeting on August 22nd to discuss with the neighbors any concerns they had.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you.
A letter came out to the neighbors from Village Marina saying that there was going to be a neighborhood get-together on August 22nd at the marina to discuss any questions the neighbors should have. So if that's not happening until August 22nd, how can you? No.
Please. Please don't speak from the audience. Thank you.
We didn't get that memo until May 10th of this year. We got an email.
That was the meeting that I alluded to earlier, that my clients had met with the neighborhood last August.
Ma'am, I need you to identify yourself, please.
Sharon Chicos, 30 Bridgeport Avenue, Milford.
Listen, you know, my clients are all local folks. They've been there for years. They would be happy to talk to anyone. In fact, they have been happy to talk to anyone.
Yeah, you know, I'd just like to have this woman, whatever she wants to say into the microphone, because I was really only hearing a portion
Thank
of
you.
it.
Obviously, we
Just speak into the microphone, please. Thank you.
we didn't get this until May 10th of this year. We got an email.
I don't know what this is. I didn't hear it before.
It's an email from Village Marina saying that they were going to have a neighborhood get-together. So if maybe they could address other concerns that the neighbors may have and send that out to the neighborhood, like this was sent out, that would be helpful. Thank you. This is breaking.
Did you have any specific concerns that you wanted to to tell us right about now, or no? You just want to have that meeting and in a neighborly fashion,
Right.
have them listen and try to accommodate the neighborhood.
Right, because it
Okay.
addressed other things like a riverboat ice cream shop was going to be a part of this.
Yeah, that's not part of the plans that
Okay.
are in front of us today. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
That just goes to indicate the age of that letter, because yes, there was a proposal early on. My clients considered purchasing a sort of an old school riverboat and docking it and creating an ice cream shop there, but we had parking issues. So we decided not to go down that route. So again, I'm not sure how this woman received this email, but that email goes back nearly a year ago.
Thank you. Mr. Solskis, have we gone through a full round of everyone being able to speak, and can we close the public hearing?
I believe you have, because you did ask for rebuttals and there were none. So, yeah, you can close it.
We had rebuttal, and we had final word from the plaintiff or the applicant. So the public hearing is now closed.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I still have a question about the traffic. That particular area, I know just about any time during the day, it backs up. And this is, don't get me wrong, this is a great project. I think it's fantastic. And because it is, it's going to draw more people. And I'm just really a little concerned about that traffic in that area with, more people coming, because it is a very good project. I think it's great, and it'll definitely enhance the area. But that particular area of Devon and coming across the bridge and with the way the lights are and so on like that, it has a tendency to really back up a lot.
Anyone else? I'd like to say that I think, this is my district, and I'm a stakeholder in Devon, and I think it's a wonderful project. I understand that, and I know Devon, I drive through it every day, and it is busy. But it's drops in the bucket. It's not going to change the culture of Devon because there's some cars going in. There's existing traffic there now, so how much more is there going to be? Yes, some. And will it be during rush hour? Maybe some of it, maybe not all of it. Will it be morning traffic? Probably not a ton of people going to the brewery in the morning, but you never know. But I think it's a wonderful addition, and I would urge a motion to approve. Again, the condition that David had recommended we put in the motion would be to have no outdoor speakers or outdoor entertainment. So I would hear a motion.
Mr. Cush, I'll make that motion. I move to approve 38-40 and 44-50 Bridgeport Avenue, petition of John Nuff Esquire for a special permit, site plan review, coastal area management site plan review for a brewery/restaurant and tandem parking on map 18, block 363, parcels 5 and 6, of which McNeese Enterprises LLC is the owner, providing that there be no outside music or entertainment of any kind.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, can you just add to that motion speakers?
I'll amend the motion to add that there be no outside speakers of any kind.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Ms. Marlowe. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to do a roll call vote.
Mr. Collegian,
I'm for the motion.
Ms. Austin,
For the motion.
Mr. Grant,
For the motion.
Mr. Moore,
For the motion.
Mr. Marlowe,
For the motion.
Mr. Z, I'm sorry, Doucette Janice.
For the motion.
My apologies. Mr. Sadi
For the motion.
and Chairman Quish. Oh, sorry, Mr.
For the
Ms.
motion.
Kearney.
For the motion.
And I am for the motion. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We do have other business to take care of tonight, so if you would make your way outside quietly, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, our next order of business is 354-438 Wheelers Farms Road, petition of D. Hollister Esquire for a special permit site plan review for on-site earth materials processing on map 96, block 915, parcel 11C1, of which Milford Developers LLC is the owner.
Okay, on the assumption that you can hear me, I'll go ahead. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Attorney Tim Hollister, representing the applicant Milford Developers, which is the intended contract purchaser of the Wheelers Woods residential development. With me are our engineer, John Gilmore, from Milona McBroom, and Bob Sweeney and Brian Kennedy from Sweeney Excavation. The brief background is that the site plan for this property, 180 apartments on 26 acres, was approved in 2016 with conditions. Construction is now scheduled to begin in September of this year. During the hearings in 2015 and 16, as the applicant, which was then Wheelers Woods LLC, we promised to this board that we would reduce impacts on the neighborhood wherever possible. Now, as we're ready to begin construction, we've finalized the site plan, and what's become clear is that there will be earth materials excavated of about 22,000 cubic yards. Some of it will be rock. We don't know the exact quantities, but we do have a pretty good bead on what the material is, how much there is, and where it is. If the materials that are excavated can be processed on site instead of transported off-site, processed, and then brought back onto the site, we are able to eliminate about 2,750 truck trips over the course of several months, and we can also reduce the processing time by about 30 days. We think we can do it in a maximum of 90 days if we're allowed to do the processing on site. So back in January, we came down and discussed this with Mr. Sulkus, and we looked at the regulations. We looked at a precedent situation that I will talk about in a moment. So what's before you is a special permit application to allow temporary, not to exceed 90 days, on-site earth materials processing equipment. And you should have a copy of our May 2nd package. Tab 5 of that package is a copy of the map, and really we're just showing you the area and the setbacks from wetlands and sidelines. That copy of the map is up here on the board. This proposal is allowed by sections 5.7.4.1 of the zoning regulations and 5.7.6.10. We've included in the application the specifications of the equipment, the brand name, how it will operate as required by the regulations. I would note that the process material is going to be used on site. This is not in any way, shape, or form to sell the process material. We've included the limits on days and hours, Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. There is a precedent situation which we discussed with Mr. Sulkus when the Howard Johnson Motel, which I believe was at the north end of Wheelers Farms Road, was demolished and the Turnpike Lodge was built. On-site equipment was allowed by special permit for 147,000 cubic yards over a time span of 18 to 24 months. This application is 22,000 cubic yards in a span of not to exceed 90 days. The application has been reviewed by the Fire Marshal, by the Wetlands Agency, and last Monday by the Police Commission, which gave us an endorsement on the grounds that this is a good way to promote public safety. You'll see in the application that we did send a letter to all the abutting neighbors about 6 weeks ago and telling them what we were doing, offering to field any questions. I did get one call, which we answered and provided the information requested. So basically the goal is to reduce impacts on the neighbors and improve traffic safety by a temporary special permit. So I'm going to have our engineer, John Gilmore, just give you just a little bit of the technical details.
Thank you. John Gilmore. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. I'm with Mylone and McBroom in Cheshire, and I represent the owner-developer of the project. As Attorney Hollister said, this is a map that's included in the application. I'll just run you through it very quickly. I have another aerial view that I think actually does justice to the application a little bit better than the map we prepared for zoning. But the zoning regulations say in 5.7 that we must maintain a 200-foot buffer from any adjacent property lines that are non-residential in nature, and 250 feet from any property lines that are residential. And that's what this map demonstrates. In addition to that, we're also identifying the area on site, which is that cross-hatched area within the confines of the site, and also outside of any wetlands or upland review areas. So this is land that meets the zoning regulations. It represents about 2 acres of the entire 26 acres that we have to work with. I'm just going to flip the page, and it's a color aerial. If anyone wants, I have 11 by 17s that give you a little bit closer look. What you're seeing is the rendered site plan of the proposed development that we intend to construct. And on there, there's kind of a white area, and that represents the 2 acres or so of area when you employ the setbacks from the residential, the setbacks from other adjacent non-residential boundaries, and the 100-foot setbacks. So that's the area. In addition to that, we've labeled some of the distances. So from the intersection, or I should say from the parkway, which is shown on the very right-hand side. The center of the parkway is the zone boundary for residential properties on the far west. And we're about 300 feet away from the center line of the parkway. Other areas, the nearest building that I can identify in the East Rutland Road area, I believe it's a non-residential building. I think it's an outbuilding, perhaps a garage. That's about 475 feet away from the nearest point on this site, identified in white there. So I think we've met the spirit of the regulation, and I think, as Attorney Hollister said, it would be a net positive benefit for reduction in truck traffic that would get into the site from the Wheelers Farm Road area. That's our point of access on Cabot Drive off of Wheelers Farm. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the board? Yeah.
Good evening. When you do the processing of the material, will this be a balanced site that you won't be taking any material off-site whatsoever?
Yes, we've made an attempt to balance the site. There may be, in the realm of possibility, some material that has to leave the site. It's not quite balanced. In a perfect world, that would be the case. But if we do not process the material on site, a lot of it's red rock, and it'll come out in sheets, and it'll have to leave the site, be processed, and brought back in. So it's kind of like twice the truck traffic, one load going out, one coming back in. So the goal is to try to get it as balanced as possible.
Thank you. Along with that, and maybe it's too early to tell, what is the method of the rock removal going to be? Are you going to blast, are you going to hoe ram, or how are you going to take that rock out?
To the extent that it's rippable, we'll do that, but we certainly expect some blasting to take place.
And do you have a designated area there that you'll store this material? I'm assuming you're going to process anywhere from 1.5 inches down to processed, or more than that?
Yeah, there is a stockpile shown on the drawing immediately after the conveyor area, but that can be moved anywhere in this 2-acre site. But I think the ongoing issue here is that we'll remove material, process it, and then put it back in. As I say, we'll use the materials, and some of it's earthen materials and some of it's rock, and process all of it for reuse. So I think you'd be excavating and removing, processing it, and then putting it back.
And just one last question, Mr. Chairman, is just, and I'm sure it's somewhere, is just what will you do for dust control?
With me tonight, I have Mr. Bob Sweeney and Brian Kennedy, who will be the contractors. But my understanding is that for dust control, this actually has a built-in water control for dust control. So they bring in a water wagon, they keep it attached to the device, and it constantly maintains a mist to keep dust down.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Is the contractor going to speak? Or not?
Only if you
Or
have
only
any
ask
questions, Mr.
Yeah, the
Bush,
question
yeah.
is, will you have a, this is a diesel machine, I'm imagining.
Mr. Bob Sweeney.
Good evening to everyone. Bob Sweeney, president of Sweeney Excavation. We're located in Hamden. We've been rock processing probably for about 25 years now in a rock quarry situation, and more so in this type of circumstance. To answer maybe a little closer some of the questions you had before, this is really a processing for a cut to fill process. So we're basically sizing this through a primary jaw. It's one machine. It'll be sized to about a 3-inch minus material. We do not have plans to process beyond that. Anything into small 1-inch and smaller aggregate becomes a secondary crusher. This site is balanced more from a cut to fill. So if the rock is in states of blasting that's bigger than 3 inches or bigger than 6 inches really, that material needs to be sized properly to put it in structurally to hold up buildings and roads and so forth. The rock processing material now, as compared to 25 years ago, most of it was much larger. It was set up for quarry operations. The dust suppression was pretty archaic to what's out there now. Dust suppression now is there's a lot of pumps. Dust suppression is just a fine misting which catches all those dust basically at every transfer point. There's a lot less transfer points in this application because it's just a single stage crusher. The noise of crushers, I know my opinion is biased, but I've been to a lot of these hearings, and I think now you'd come out to a construction site and you probably wouldn't even notice it's going. As long as it's full and it's processing, you don't get the stuff you might hear in a rock quarry. They're made much smaller. They're made much more mobile. I'm not always happy that the capacity of them is less than what it is in a larger one, but that they're much more project friendly than quarry friendly. But the dust suppression is excellent on them. They are quieter than what some people have known before. But this particular project is, if we do not do this on site, we need to take all that material, take it away from the site, process it, and bring it back. And that's basically, you know, the reason to process this. So your question was 1 inch, everything else. It's no secondary crushing. It's just primary to balance the site, to take those materials and use them there on site, as opposed to removing them with, I think, 2,700 dump truck loads and those tailgates slamming and everything else.
So this is a diesel machine that you anticipate will run
This is diesel, yes.
8 or 10 hours a day for 6 days a week?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
And does it have a scrubber on the exhaust?
Have a scrubber?
A scrubber on the exhaust,
I'm
yeah.
not familiar with the term of scrubber, but it's certainly within the decibel levels. A lot of the emissions now on all of these machines is very, very stringent. Yeah.
So there's no, it's whatever came from the manufacturer. There's no additional exhaust reduction.
No, there isn't, but the crushers that we have are all Tier 4. They're recent, so they're up to the latest,
Right.
latest emissions.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from the board? John?
Yeah, I understand there actually, Mr. Salkis, there's actually a time, operational times set already between 7 and 5 that this operation would be going?
Yeah, the applicant, I believe, they can remind you, they did testify earlier that, of the hours.
So that will be the hours, you won't be operating past 5
I
in the
believe that's
evening?
what is proposed, 7 to 5.
Along those lines, just would it be a consideration on a Saturday to start at 8 instead of 7?
I guess I would, yes.
Thank you.
Then, Mr. Chair, my follow-up would be, would that push your schedule back? Would it go beyond the 90 days?
I don't believe so, no.
Any other questions or comments? I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, this is a public hearing.
Sorry. The room is so empty. So then again, I would open this up to the public. Anyone wish to speak? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed, so it's no longer a public hearing. So then I would entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve 354 through 438 Wheelers Farm Road, petition of T. Hollister Esquire for a special permit site plan review on-site earth materials processing on map 96, block 915, parcel 11C1, of which Milford Developers LLC is the owner, with the conditions of the operation to be Monday through Friday from 7 to 5, and on Saturdays from 8 to 5.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Marlowe? We have a motion and a second. We'll do all those in favor. Opposed? No one? That's, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Chair report, I have none this evening. Regulation Subcommittee, Mr. Grant?
Yes, the two regulation changes that we presented at the last meeting have been sent out to all the different cities and departments that we need to send it to. And I would expect that probably at our July 17th meeting, we would be seeing those regulations coming back to the board for approval to actually make the changes within our regulations.
Approval of minutes. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second? Austin? All those in favor? Opposed? That passes. Step. Staff report.
Yeah, just briefly, one item. We're working, over time, we have been collecting and we have been requiring of applicants electronic submissions to the office for better record keeping. And we're hoping that starting the fiscal year July 1st, we're working towards getting you the ability to access the electronic plans. And if we're able to accomplish that, then you can more or less, opt out if you don't want to have the paper plans. And if that is something that interests you, then let me know that. But we still have some work to do on that, and if we're able to do that, obviously that will be a new option for you.
Great.
Will we still get the staff reports in paper, or?
You can still get everything in paper if you want it.
No,
yes.
if we opt out of the plans, will we still get the staff? Can we just get the staff?
I think if you would like that, we can, yeah, I mean, we're still going to make packages, and we're still going to have all of that, so we would still send you things unless, yeah, we can do that.
Great. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Motion to adjourn? In favor?